Well, I got something a little bit different for you today. This is the Edge Pro Apex. A little sharpening set that I've had for quite some time, but never really jived with all that much. It's got some problems that I'll get into as I kind of go through this. If I remember right, this is the Apex Pro 4. But the only difference between the numbers of those particular things are just which stone kind of things come with it. For what I understand, this is actually kind of an older model, so it has some different sets of things, like stones and whatnot, that come with it. It also does come with this nice carrying case, which is great. It's also made in the States, which is also a great thing for people who really find that to be important. Alright, so first up, what it comes with is essentially this. I did pick up a couple of extra things for it over time. One of which was the smaller blade attachment, because I was getting kind of frustrated trying to do something like a Swiss Army knife with it. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, here's the standard stones that it ends up coming with. You can see that it's got, there's 1,000, here's 600, here's 400, here's 220, and here's a 120. And this 120 looks like it's got some sort of sparkly bits in it as well, but it's not diamond. It's these are all Arkansas stones, which means they do actually require water. Water that they suggest you put just a little tiny bit of dish soap into to kind of help the surfactants stay at the surface instead of embedding in there. And I actually did pick up a diamond stone separately. This one was fine, which I think was about the only one that was offered, or at least that I could find. Because I was noticing that these guys don't cut as much as I really would like them to, especially on harder steels. At the time in which I was using this, a lot of S30V, and it was just causing me quite a bit of trouble. But yeah, it's one of those kind of cross thingies. This one has suction cups that it comes with, which kind of limits where you can actually use this at. You need to have something with a very, very flat surface for it to actually stick correctly onto. From what I understand, they now also make a little insert here that you can use to clamp down to a workbench, which is a little bit more akin to their professional line rather than the Apex. But since I don't have that one, I can't really speak to it. So I'll stack these stones up. What I do like is the length of these stones. They're 6 inches by 1 inch, which gives you quite a decent amount of throw when you're actually sharpening here. So I can go ahead and kind of toss this guy together a little bit here. That one will go into there. This should be perpendicular to it. And you can kind of see these different colored graduation sort of things. They're very vague designs for which different angle, 20, 22, 25, whatever. But it obviously really depends on the knife as to where it actually sits and whatnot, as I will show you here in a second. Let's see, what do I actually want to throw down on here? Meh. Sure, I got an open L number 8 just in front of me kind of thing. So, yeah. So here's kind of the mounting system for it. It's actually tightened and loosened by this ball, if I remember right. So I will just grab a stone. This one's the diamond one, but you know, it's just whichever grit you happen to be working at on any particular time. And you'll tighten it down and it'll wedge itself in between those two triangles sort of things. So kind of the idea is you place the knife basically so that the edge is up there, and then you can set that on there and either go by these little colored things, which isn't going to be super accurate, but it will get your knife sharp, or you can basically lay a phone or an angle cube or whatever on there. What I end up getting kind of annoyed with this thing, I think I do have the smaller knife thing set up on it at the moment, but that's all right. It still works the same. It really depends on the shape of the knife and how far away from the very edge. You don't want to have it below that, because then you end up grinding away at this, which comes with painter's tape on there, and it's kind of designed to hopefully protect this plane a little bit. It's just plastic. Probably not the best choice. Maybe this whole central plate could be steel or something like that. Well, steel or aluminum, maybe some other sort of metal or something like that. But yeah, you'll end up doing that. You'll do your sharpening throws all the way through it, and then you have to swap on over to the other side and go ahead and repeat the same amount of strokes and everything, while keeping that same original setup that you had here. And a lot of times that's difficult, especially if you're trying to sharpen something larger like kitchen knives, which they end up showing in a lot of their manual sort of things where they're trying to sharpen from 6 to 10 inch chef's knives, which means you're not going to be able to get the whole blade. You're going to have to reposition the blade several different times throughout your sharpening of a particular side. And it makes it fairly difficult to be consistent when you're going from here over to the other side and trying to keep it consistently spaced out above the plane. Obviously, using these things can help a little bit with the spine for some of them, but a lot of them just doesn't work, especially if they're not flat at the top. If they do something crazy like, a more severe clip than this, then that's going to cause some problems there for you. And I just ended up sawing away at S30V for a very, very long time and not being super happy with the results. They have made some improvements, I guess, to some of their newer ones, where there's a cube you can actually shove up into the bottom of this that has a magnet on there to attempt to hold the blade kind of more still. That's the other thing that I really ran into quite a lot when sharpening was to be able to make sure that this knife isn't moving on you, you have to put quite a bit of downward force on it. And that's fine, except when you're spending, 10, 15 minutes on a side or whatever with that. That's a lot of stress that you're putting down on the knife, and it tires your hands out. And it's just not really the best yeah, it's not the best experience I've had. I've gotten some okay angles with it, but I think I basically lack the patience that something like this requires, which is kind of sad. But that's what it is these days. So there's a couple of things that kind of complaining about is these angle points that aren't all that great, and it would be nice if you could have a little bit more fine adjustment to it, like if this was a screw or something like that that had a decent turn ratio so that it would slowly raise or lower it, so you could actually monitor it with fairly decently with like an angle cube or whatever. But instead, anytime that you want to change that, you have to basically loosen this nut, and mine is super tight. Well, anyway, yeah, you'll loosen the nut, raise or lower this, tighten it down, and then place the stone back on the blade, because you don't want to keep it on there, otherwise you'll scratch the ever-loving crap out of it, as you would with any other stone, and then remeasure it. It's just kind of a lot of work for that. But it does have a nice throw. It's very comfortable to hold on to this, and doesn't really have too many problems with bottoming out and having the stone skip up onto the blade a little bit more. Something that I've personally run into with my KME that I'm also not super fond of because of, but that's a completely different story. But between the two, I do like that these have longer stones on them. They're 2 inches longer compared to the KME. But yeah, it's something that if you want to be very precise, you can get it that way with this thing. But there's a lot of caveats on there. How well are you at actually holding a particular blade thing position there through the whole process of sharpening, even though you do have to flip sides to be able to continually work that burr on both sides, which I was never super successful in. Yeah, it was just not the super best experience that I had, especially for a lot of these angled systems. There's quite a few of them. There's this one, there's the KME, there's there's the Wicked Edge that destroys your wallet because it's several $1,000s. There's the Tormac's not like that, but there's a few others that are out there that are basically the same kind of idea, where you fix the angle and then you have a similar plane for you to be able to sharpen on a reference point to. And almost all of them are vastly more expensive than a lot of other forms of sharpening. And that's kind of unfortunate. And something like this one I can kind of understand because, hey, it's made in America. That, obviously does grant a bit of extra cost associated with it. And yeah, it's machined all right and whatnot. But just the execution could be better. Like I said, I believe that they have kind of made some improvements on these guys over the years. Not that I've had this thing for many, 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 many years, maybe 2.5 or 3, but they have made some improvements, like that magnetic cube that you can shove into the bottom of this to try to hold the blade there, so you don't have to apply quite as much force to the handle to keep it still. I think they've fixed up this edge plate a little bit. Obviously, they have the option now of having that steel bar or aluminum bar down there on the bottom, so you can actually clamp it to a desk rather than just relying on the suction cups and whatnot. And from what I understand, they also offer a whole lot more diamond stones rather than these Arkansas stones. But that also comes at a price. Now, all together, if I remember right, this was like $280 for the system and these 5 stones. We got the 120, the 220, the 400, 600, and 1000. And yeah, I ended up, like I said, purchasing that diamond stone to try to be a little bit more aggressive in some of my sharpening at the beginning to try to get that burr to form, and wasn't having a super amount of luck with that either. Now they have kind of upgraded a lot of those to have options for diamond stones, where they're kind of impregnated in a resin kind of thing rather than the standard steel plate diamond stuff that a lot of other companies are used to dealing with. And the problem with that is I haven't actually seen a set that includes those, but separately they each in their different grits range from I think like $45 to $77 each, which easily jacks this whole sharpening system up astronomically in price if you prefer sharpening on diamond, because you obviously don't need to soak and keep your stones wet while you're sharpening with them, to the point where it's, like, what, 51, 52, 50, $350 just in excess stones to be able to take a knife from 80 grit on down to I think they go up to like 4,000 grit or something like that for the diamond stuff. And at that point, it's just cost prohibitive. It just doesn't make any sense why you need to spend anywhere near that much to be able to try and get an edge. I do understand the convenience factor of being able to dial in exactly the right angle, but I do think that some of the more clamp type systems, like the KME or the predecessor kind of idea of that, the Lansky sharpening system, where it'll actually clamp on the backside of the blade, ends up doing a lot better job on that because it holds that same angle on both sides, so you have a lot less variation in how you're actually holding the knife on the platform. So they do have that as an advantage. Their disadvantage is obviously much smaller stones that makes it even more and more difficult to sharpen larger knives. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. Overall, I'm not disappointed necessarily with the system, but it has been sitting in my drawer for the last year because I just haven't wanted to use it. So I'm looking to actually pass it on to someone who will probably appreciate it more than me. I don't know, whether Craigslist or eBay or whatnot. I will clean up these stones a little bit more before then, but yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on this Apex Edge Pro thing. This was kind of one of the first sharpeners that I spent quite a bit of money on. Before then, I was basically sharpening on a 1x30 sand belt, or sanding belt system sort of thing. That was vertical, and I would do the edges that way. And that works as long as you're very consistent with your hand. It works. But trying to keep up on some of those belts and whatnot was kind of a pain in the butt. I've now kind of switched over to mostly using the Work Sharp with the Can Onion blade grinding attachment. I'll do another review on that, obviously, because that's what I end up using on all of my knives these days. But that one it's a lot smaller, much more convenient to break down, put away, and then pull out when I need to, much more like these guys. and I get very, very consistent and nice results out of it. So yeah, this was kind of the first expensive machine that I purchased and wasn't super thrilled with. Like I said, and I've kind of alluded to, I also have the KME, which I'll go over in another video as well. And I had some of similar problems with that, and one or two others that are kind of a little bit more special to it. So yeah, I'll get into that a little bit more. And well, as always, thanks for watching, and hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.